and I am recording the video, unlike last time with Ood School where I forgot to hit record. So, but it's fine because it was all up on Twitch, so it didn't matter. Didn't matter. All right. Hi guys. Who? Oh right. Hold on. Sorry. Wait. Bit of professionalism. Okay. Welcome to Vantage Point, the place for me, Glass Half Dead, to talk about the subjects I want to talk about without having to care about my YouTube channel's analytics. So expect some heavily rambling content as I turn the conceal order on what I want to talk about to an engage order. And today, I am joined by Strategic Advantage. Hi guys, who are you? Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, hi, I'm Emmanuel, and which I don't know what side we're on.
You're there for me. Hi, I'm Alex.
Yeah, he's above and to the right for the viewers. Yeah, there. Yeah, that's right.
There.
Yeah.
There we go.
There.
All right, yeah.
I think that works.
That's right.
Yeah, we're Strategic Advantage. We've been around for a bit. We recently relaunched our channel for the new relaunch, Kill Team 2, with a lot of tutorial videos on there. Both of us pretty experienced with Kill Team 1 and super hype about Kill Team 2.
Very much so. We've done a little bit with the new one and been having a lot of fun with it.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you guys are the only ones I think so far to have done an actual how to play the game, right?
There's a couple out there, but I think there's tiers to those tutorial videos because there's a lot out there that are kind of similar to the one that GW has done already, which is very much here's how you can basically roll dice, but a lot of the rules are kind of glazed over just to kind of get it into a short format.
Yes.
But I think ours is the first kind of complete long form tutorial of like, hey, this is going to get you through the whole core rulebook in a nutshell.
And even for us, we weren't able to totally pack everything into a 20-minute video. Like, you still do need the rulebook for it, but at least with our video, you can take a pretty good stab at it just with the video without needing to, like, unless you have to go back and reference like some really detailed stuff, you can play it off our video.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
Our
first script for it was a little long, and then we realized that about a third of it was just line of sight.
I think our first plan was to have a 15-minute single video to explain how to play the game, and we very rapidly realized that was not happening.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I intend to tackle it at some point because obviously a full how to play video is what a lot of people want. I mean, you know, my how to play Kill Team is my most viewed video ever, which probably doesn't say much about my channel, but is relatively speaking good. But like you have to talk fast, and you have to, and you know, I very clearly stipulated in that, which I think probably had simpler rules. Maybe you have to say, hey, you're going to want to pause this at some point and come back because there's a lot of information here, and I put a lot of text on screen as well to complement my voice, and it's like,
and then the chaptering too, super helpful, just to split the video up. I actually just replied to a comment on one of our videos right now, someone that said, it's like, I had to come back exactly to this video to figure out what I was doing because I was getting it wrong in the game, so it honestly becomes another resource for it. And I think having more than just one tutorial video out there in the world is super helpful because everyone explains it a little differently. And
absolutely.
And I think that the really cool thing about us having a Kill Team 101 for Kill Team 1 as well as a Kill Team 2 tutorial series is I was able to look at the overall timestamp of how many minutes it took for us to teach Kill Team 1 compared to Kill Team 2. And it was an interesting metric to look at. It was like 10 or 15
order of magnitude,
just so much easier to teach Kill Team 2, which is just like, because all of us kind of know, like innately, that this game's more straightforward, a lot easier to teach, less rules, even though the rules are a lot more wordy. It was kind of nice to kind of see a little one-to-one comparison of just our same exact kind of way of teaching, carrying forward to the two things. But
that's pretty cool because I mean, certainly with the new Kill Team, I think if you forget Nuance, there are 4 things you can do, right? That's pretty cool. You shoot, charge, fight. What's the other thing? Thank you.
Move.
That's the one.
And
As you can tell, I'm still learning.
bravely run away.
Yeah. I like that. That's pretty much all you do. But then somehow, you end up with 45 minutes of explaining each of those really in depth. And then also, obviously, as you noted, line of sight. So that's something that now that I know it, I don't think I've had a problem with it. The only, I've never had a question about it in the game. The only thing is finding the actual line of sight. And I was playing against the playtester that I had on my channel, a guy called Wes. We had our first game together like 2 weeks ago, I think. The same time I went to the Vanguard Tactics guys. And obviously I'm kind of letting him lead the game because he's been playing it for a year. And we got to a point and he says, yeah, I can shoot you. I was like, are you sure? Whip out the laser pointers. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, you probably can. I think actually that's going to be a really big thing in tournaments. Like that really precise, yeah, no, you can shoot me, I can shoot you. More so possibly than we ever had in the old edition. Yeah. I've actually already forgotten how line of sight works in the old edition. I'm going to be honest. I actually can't remember.
You should ask Emmanuel about being on the receiving end of precise shooting.
Yeah, that's probably one of Alex's biggest strengths in Kill Team is finding just the tiniest bead that he can draw to shoot something, and that's how he would always get amazing shots off in Kill Team 1. And using an Omnispecs and Sniper Spec with Plasma and all that kind of stuff in Kill Team 1, didn't matter where you were, how much he saw you, he was still hitting on threes and taking you out on a 4-up. So that completely taken away from him in Kill Team 2 with a conceal order and heavy terrain. So he's having to kind of relearn that finesse of shooting, and I actually think it speeds up the game quite a bit, and actually kind of gets rid of a lot of those line of sight arguments, because you were looking, especially at the tournament level, and in our experience going to SCO, LVO, all that kind of stuff, you would see players spending way too much time getting down to eye level, confirming, arguing back and forth, arguing in good faith, back and forth as far as what this guy can see because of these long bomb shots to leaders that they would try to make.
Sure.
I mean, now if you're not on a vantage point, it really doesn't matter if the guy's concealed and tucked up next to a terrain. So automatically half of the team you could just take out of the shooting equation. And then let alone Harleys and Gene Stealers having their own shenanigans with that whole line of sight and vantage point things. It really focuses down and pares down who your options are. So the amount of time it's going to take to actually verify this is a shot, I'm going to take the shot, I'm going to roll dice, I think is actually constricted a lot more. And that's going to benefit the tournament so much, because people pushing up 90 minutes for games, for tournament games, I don't think that's going to be an issue anymore. I mean, the games that we've played, we've been able to play easily under an hour while we were still learning the rules.
Right. It's interesting. So for example, so I agree in general. Like, I think that 90% of your line of sight shots are simple, right? You're on a conceal order. Okay, it doesn't matter. I think on the edge cases, because this game, to get around the conceal order, you move, you have to flank them. And that means, again, just in the few games I've played, I've spent about the same amount of time figuring out, can I actually shoot you now? While still remaining in cover for me so that you can't return fire, as I ever did in the last game. And interestingly, you said that you're playing in under an hour. So for my LGT tournament, I've given everyone an hour and a half, and I felt that's probably good. We're still getting a few people going to time. You know, it is what it is. But I think we'll be okay. But actually, at Warhammer World, because they released their pack, they're giving an hour and 45, which is, I mean, that's a long time.
I wonder if they're assuming there's going to be more novice players at Warhammer World, just because it's a bigger event and it's a new event, and just like you're bringing a lot of 40K people down to Kill Team, or I would argue up to Kill Team.
Of course.
But there might be more novice players at a big kind of flagship event like that, so they might be giving a little bit of a buffer. I don't know. I think 90 is the right answer, especially because scouting phase is going to slow people down a
That's
little
true.
bit.
Yeah.
Not scouting phase, the whole pregame sequence,
Yes.
which includes scouting phase, but also barricades. And oh my goodness, I have so many thoughts about barricades. There is a huge metagame around barricades. So many
Yeah.
things to consider in there. And then that the barricade consideration even comes from deployment zone choosing.
Yep.
Like, okay, I'm defender, I'm choosing my deployment zone. Which one works better for my barricades as well as line?
Sure.
It's so glossed over. Yeah, place barricades. But I think it's as important as choosing your deployment zone, as important as deploying as well. They're so massive to changing the flow of a game.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Also, obviously, I don't know, I think, again, because I'm thinking about this as someone that soon is going to have to put together a tournament. And, like, I'm just being given a huge bucket of terrain and being told, make some, you know, I think we ended up with 46 players, I think. So, acceptable size.
Wow, good on you, man.
So,
That's
23 boards. With just I don't even know what terrain I'm being given, so I'm a little bit terrified. But, like, obviously I'm going to have to preset all of the boards, and then terrain is such a big deal, right? Like, if you mess it up, like, I you know, the archetypical one is gene stealers, 10 gene stealers. If I don't give them enough terrain, they just get shot off the board, no question, right? And they're a weak team, they're not going to get anything done really. If I give them too much terrain, they completely dominate, and there's no way to beat them unless you get lucky with grenades, I guess. Right?
The games we've played thus far have been using the Sector Fronteras terrain, and it is very strong for melee teams.
A lot of heavy.
Because it's a lot of heavy,
little nubs.
And all those little nubs all over the place basically mean that you're unshootable until someone gets like far around that terrain.
Yeah.
Because so one of the things we do, which I think also helps speed things up, is when we've got a conceal order and someone moves into, you know, some sort of like heavy terrain.
Yeah.
We'll often sit there with the laser line as they finish the move and be like, that's the line that you have to cross in order to be able to shoot them.
Okay, cool.
And so we already know that before another operative even goes to try and do something. And, you know, that's both beneficial for someone who's might try to move and shoot, but also, you know, for Emmanuel with his commandos, he was sitting there drawing those lines and saying, can anyone get to this line?
Right, yeah.
And I just, no,
great. You don't need to worry about
there.
Yeah. In the Fronteras terrain with those little nubs, like you get a hair of a base tucked behind one of those nubs.
That's what you
need. It makes them almost effectively invisible.
Yeah.
And that was pretty brutal for Alex. I don't think that Fronteras terrain is that great for these terrain rules.
I think because what we were doing essentially was using anything that was a full building height was heavy terrain. And then anything smaller than that was light. So some of those like wall sections were both heavy and light mixed. It's like half heavy, half light. But even that amount of heavy terrain all over the board, it was very difficult to draw a line.
No, totally. I think if you're using the Sector Fronteras, you probably want to take a wall or two away. I would assume.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Well, we're using Sector Fronteras plus the Rise of Ruins.
Okay, that's a lot.
We have a lot, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have some thoughts after doing a lot of that. I got my Orky terrain all primed back there, ready for me to finally get the official Octarius stuff on the board. So I think that'll work a lot better. A little less heavy on those nooks. But I think it might benefit a little bit more from maybe some more light cover, depending on how you're laying stuff out.
Right.
But one thing that's also a huge debate, and I know where you stand on this, Glass, is the whole asymmetrical versus symmetrical terrain layouts. And I don't think we really know the answer yet, because Gut says asymmetrical, right?
Sure.
Gut really says asymmetrical solely because of the defender disadvantage.
Yeah.
And I have it on good faith, and I'm not at liberty to say what group is doing this, but there's a large group of experienced Kill Team 1 players that are really drilling down to actually see if this gut check was accurate or not, and playing tons of game on explicitly symmetrical terrain to see if there's an attacker-defender skew.
Okay.
And they played a ton of games already, and it's pretty close to 50-50 between attacker and defender victories.
Cool.
So stressing out about trying to make asymmetrical terrain, which is arguably harder than making symmetrical
I would agree.
terrain.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We might be overthinking things.
Yeah.
We might be overthinking things and creating a problem where we don't need to. So I'm really curious to see once this group kind of publishes what they're saying and kind of vocally comes out and says, hey, this is what we found and this is what we're going to do in tournaments moving forward. I'm really curious to see what the final results are, but so far it's looking like symmetrical is fine, sure. Which I know makes Sheldon pretty happy if that
he's very happy. Yeah,
because he's already come up with tons of symmetrical terrain layouts. So if he could keep that, I'm sure he'd be happy. But honestly, terrain feature amount might matter more than terrain layout, meaning how much heavy, how much how many vantage points, who has access to vantage points at deployment zones and stuff like that, all that kind of stuff. Because another game, Alex, do you want to tell them about the game where you had no vantage points?
Yeah, that sucked. that was not great.
That was our very first game.
Oh, okay.
We're like, oh, we messed up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think there's also, so I know that I just did a terrain video, but I think I missed out some key points in that. First things first, there are secondaries that rely on terrain placement as well. And I think the actual first thing you should do before anything else is making sure that you have terrain placed so that those secondaries are valid. Then build around those, because you can't just say, right, this tac op isn't valid. Right? I think that's probably the worst thing to do. My video was fine for a generic thought discussion thing, but if you're actually thinking, okay, I want to build a tournament terrain, you have to know that there are the 2 vantage points, sabotage and Vantage. I think it's called, is it just Vantage? Where you have to score, you have to do something on a vantage point, and then you have to select a building over 3 inches away from your drop zone, blah blah blah. And I think if you don't include those in your tournament pack, you have messed up in your tournament.
I think that's an interesting thing about the Kill Team stream pack, is as long as he keeps using the terrain set that he's been using, that's in theory up to 8 pieces of terrain that have vantage points, because every container and every tower does.
Yes.
So largely shouldn't be an issue with that pack, but still definitely bears thinking about. Actually, when you played your game with Wes, what kind of terrain were you guys using?
That was just the Octarius terrain.
Okay.
And I had the asymmetrical discussion with him there. He was like, yep. And so, or either I provoked it because I was thinking about that for a video, or he said it to me. My brain is mush. I don't know. People tell me things and I just take that as my idea. That's how I work now. If you say something in this video and I'll take it. It's mine. Yeah, exactly. That's how I work. I am that meme. Yeah.
You sounded like a tech priest there.
I am the meme. Yeah. And so anyway, he was just like, yep. When I was last there, we were discussing how should balls be set out, and if you look at my Octarius layout in that video, I think that was almost exactly what we did in our game. He was like, yeah, just push the big central heavy thing slightly one way, and that's it. Yeah.
So speaking of that, that was an idea that I had, and we can just spitball it now. But for the purposes...
Watch out what you say. He's going to take it as his idea.
I will. Yeah, it's mine now.
But in terms of for tournament prep, right? So setting up asymmetric terrain at every table is just, and that is a feat that would take a lot to do. Symmetric is just 10 times easier logistically.
Sure.
So, and this requires a slight modification to pregame setup, but what if defender got something like all the boards are set symmetrically, but then the defender could shift 2 pieces of terrain 2 inches?
What do you think about that, Emmanuel?
I really don't want to change anything about the rulebook.
Yeah, I don't want to either.
I really want to
Oh,
dig my heels on this, and unless we find the game is completely, absolutely busted, like I have nightmares over how skewed Kill Team 1 became from my
From
whole
core.
philosophy is
Sure.
like Joe regular guy coming in, I want to play Marines, right? Wants to
Yeah.
pick up the core rulebook, and that should be enough for him to say, okay, I'm ready to play this in a tournament. I know this game.
Yeah.
And Kill Team had to be modified so much because the core rules were so limited,
Mhm.
and how they explained things and how they structured competitive gaming, to the point that it really wasn't balanced, honestly, out of the core book, that we had to fix that time and time again with mission structure, with alternative and homebrew secondaries, all that kind of stuff. So much had to be changed about the game that if you show up to a tournament, it's not really the game that you knew.
Yeah.
I really, really want to try and steer clear of that as much as we can until we prove that the game busted and we need
So
to.
I completely agree with you. But on the other hand, I've played in a couple big hammer tournaments at this point
Mhm.
where it's not in the tournament pack at all. No, there's no written anything about this. But when you get to a table with an opponent, the tournament organizer tells you what mission you're playing,
Mhm.
and then the two players immediately look at the table and be like, "Are we okay with this terrain?" And then you just shuffle it as necessary because no Warhammer RTT is going to have like enough for identical terrain for 12
Oh,
tables.
of
Like
course.
that
Of
shit
course.
just
Hard
doesn't
enough for
happen.
Kill Team. I can't expect
Yeah,
Big Hammer to
yeah.
do that.
But so like, just not obviously different games, but as an analog of sorts, like it's not unheard of for players to do a little shift prior to a game to the terrain to make them agree that it will be a good game.
So,
Well, I mean, the one counterpoint I would put to that, and I'll ask you because I genuinely don't know, Alex. Do you think terrain is as critical to games in Big Hammer as in
Yep.
40K as it
Yep.
is to Kill Team 2?
Yep.
Okay.
In the team tournament we did, they literally explicitly said that there will be tables available to each team with light, medium, and heavy density of terrain. And we were very much trying to influence who was on what table because different armies do better depending on what type of terrain is on the table.
So maybe to leapfrog off of your idea, then instead of having explicitly defender gets to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you could have in the tournament packet, when players arrive at a table before they roll off for attacker and defender, they are at liberty to shift the terrain around as much as they want, and until both are agreed. And if neither of them can come to an agreement and they're arguing, the TO just comes and says, "I'm doing it," and it's like, "You're playing on this," and then walks away.
Yeah.
I think most people would be civil about that and shuffle stuff around. And speaking from experience, where we played at a tournament where there were rules to set up the tables at SCO, I think you were at that one class. No one did it, so most people are just going to show up to a table and just say, whatever. We don't have enough time."
I mean, it could be that, the packs have like the symmetric layouts, and then instead of it being this is the hardcore prescribed layout, you don't deviate. It'd be like, this is the general layout. Feel free to manipulate it slightly prior to the roll off.
Yeah. I think prior to roll off, if you're going to do that in a tournament, I think it has to be prior to roll off.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Because then that's
I think you don't want to give too much information to the people moving stuff around, because then a more experienced player could really take advantage of that. And then again, a more experienced player should play better, right? And that's part of the game, but also might lead to some bad feels. I don't know. But as it stands, who knows? Maybe symmetrical's not as bad.
Interesting. Out of curiosity, I believe it is, but in the new Kill Team, we have a very clear and defined follow these bullet points to start your game, right? You have the same thing in 40K, right? It's like a 2-page spread, step 1 to 10 or whatever.
So it's actually really interesting. So Emmanuel's not so into Big Hammer where I am, but so it was fascinating because, you know, I played Kill Team 1 or Kill Team 2018, whatever you want to call it, and Kill Team, especially with Arena, they were very clearly testing shit that ended up in Warhammer 9th edition. Like sort of the mission format, the flow, all that kind of stuff. And then at the same time, a lot of the structure that came out of 9th, I feel like has now been morphed and modified into Kill Team 2021. They're they're, you know, different games, but they have something going on behind the scenes in their game rules writing division where people are bouncing ideas between teams.
We haven't talked about this. I'm curious. Do you have examples from 9th that ended up in Kill Team 2?
So the entire narrative structure is hardcore.
Oh, yeah, Crusade. Yeah, for sure. That I do know. Yeah.
The concept of the potted secondaries, it doesn't quite work out the same. How the archetypes are not the same. Like in Big Hammer, you have 5 sets of secondaries, and you can only take 1 from each category. So it doesn't exactly work out the same with archetypes, but I feel like that there was an influence there. The mission structure, I don't think was so much. It was already. I feel like the overall mission structure didn't change a ton. But the evolution from Kill Team 2018 to 9th edition Warhammer, like, if you had played Arena, you were like dropped in, and you're like, oh yeah, I know how to do all this. This is everything I've already been doing.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing that I see a lot of parallels for, and I'm kind of thankful that they have a testing ground where they can do this, is that GAW kind of pulling a lot more modern kind of game elements that you're seeing in a lot of other game types into Kill Team. Activation based stuff. I mean, I was huge into Legion, still am kind of, but then Kill Team 2 came out and now my stormtroopers are sitting in the closet. But it's interesting because on one of your recent videos, Glass, you were talking about how you think that the meta is going to shift more towards activation being more important than actual durability and power of actual weapons and all that kind of stuff. Activation is going to be key. And 100% agree. After my first game, that was abundantly clear to me, specifically because of how activation is so powerful in games like Legion, where if you have it's activation advantage, I think is what it's referred to there, where you have people that can just move freely about the cabin. It's amazing how much you can accomplish and how much you can punish when you're not worrying about repercussions. And then another concept to it, the whole first last moving, where you do something very risky with the intent of being able to pull that person back very soon in the next turning point.
Yeah.
Again, relying a little bit on initiative, but still, if that person can at least take punishment from one of your opponent's activations, it might be a worth risk to do that for last first kind of activation. That's huge in Legion as well.
Yeah.
As a
there's no Overwatch mechanic in Legion, though, right?
There's a standby mechanic, so there's something similar. But you don't, but not a rubber banding kind of mechanic where if you're behind or if you're running fewer activations, you get to do more. Right. But you can kind of mitigate that activation disadvantage with something like a standby, where a unit is semi-active still and has a threat range. Well, they'll activate if something comes into that threat range, so you kind of gain board control even though you're down on activations, by having a threatening presence that's going to deter your opponent from coming into that presence. So kind of in Legion. But the other thing from Legion is the opposing dice pools, which I think was one of the biggest improvements for Kill Team.
Yep.
Just increasing the amount of dice, taking out all those gates for all the steps of the dice, made statistics a lot, not 100%. You could still roll a ton of ones, but you can rely a little bit more on statistics that you couldn't on the previous team, just because of less gates, more volume.
Sure.
Yeah. So I had a Rust Stalker charge the commando graph. How should that combat end? You tell me, Andrew. How does that?
You got
that should
and
be
as far as I'm concerned, that's how it ends.
It's a
The
dead
Rust
grot,
Stalker,
but I'm guessing
the
it's
Rust
not.
Stalker got 1 normal hit out of his 5 attacks.
Oof. Yeah, that's
Dealt four wounds to the Grot, who has 5,
oh,
who got 1 critical and 2 normal hits,
nice.
who proceeded to then deal 6 damage to the Rust Stalker.
Oh, no, that's
Who had 6 health left?
oh,
No, he was unwounded.
Commando Grodd is best boy.
definitely.
No, he didn't kill him. He just
think he did.
wounded him. No.
I think he
Someone
did.
else. The nod came in afterwards. Because
That's
that Rust
right.
Stalker, yeah.
Oh, that's right. He
One-shotted.
he yellowed out of there.
Right. Yeah.
Perfect.
I
That's the
remember.
way it should be. You know, you don't just charge the Commando Grodd out of nowhere, right? Let's take it back a little bit because we're getting like
Sure.
super deep into random stuff here. Let's do some basics for those that maybe don't know you. Like what factions do you like to play? Yeah, super basic. Because I know the answer to this, obviously. But
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm an AdMech player. I love my cog boys. When I first walked into the shop and met a manual for the first time, and it was like, I was like, what should I play? These are the things I think I would be interested in playing. I think he was like, oh, you should check out Gene Stealer cults and Imperial Guard. I think they might be your kind of thing. And I looked at the shelf. I was like, yeah, but those robot guys are cool. So I bought the robot guys.
that's fair.
And it's been a beautiful love story ever since. I love my AdMech.
What do you
I now have.
do? You have like a wish list for next Fridays, whatever, the 17th?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No.
I would. So I have a great many AdMech models, not just for Kill Team. I've got probably 6,000 points worth at this point painted up for Big Hammer. So there's a lot of other models that could potentially be dropped in that weren't even in Kill Team 2018 that I would love to see. Like I'd love to get Taraxi, the little like flappy boys.
No.
Yes.
No. Get that out of here. No flying flamethrowers. Absolutely. I quit.
They only have a 6-inch range. It won't be that bad.
Unless
because it's a bespoke team, they get the 1 flamethrower that is 2 pentagon, which would be hilarious.
Yeah, sure, maybe.
But I would love to see an AdMech team that just has like some truly bizarre rules. Like I really enjoy. The first time I read through it, I did not love our strategic ploys. The imperatives that have like the pro and con to each of them.
That's the same as 40k, right?
It is for the Skitarii
or something.
Well, yeah. So now so it used to just be that AdMech had canticles for both Kill Team 2018 and the old AdMech Codex. With the new AdMech Codex in Big Hammer, Skitarii have the Doctrines and Cult Mechanicus, which is like the Elector Priests, the Tech Priests, and a couple other things.
Yeah.
Have canticles still. And what I like to play is Mars in Big Hammer, which means that all your Skitarii get both Doctrines and Canticles, which means I have 2 sets of rotating buffs and everyone hates it. But anyways, I would love to see even more weirdness in that vein, because I now really like it. I think it makes it very interesting to have like balance that pro and con. I would love to see like just so many weird interactions in AdMech where it's just like you don't even begin to understand until you've played them like 5 times, like how these can possibly benefit you at the right moment.
Wild prediction time?
For you?
You ready, Alex? I'm going to ask you some questions. I've been thinking a lot about your AdMech and for next week. I'm shaking my boots a little bit because I'm worried you're going to get some powerful toys.
I have not. I've been blowing bubbles.
So, do you think you're getting a Commando-esque or Veteran Guard-esque treatment? Because we know it's a ton of pages. Or do you think it's going to be more fire teams?
I think it will be more Commando Veteran Guardsman-esque because it's called the Hunter Clade, which to me, I don't know, I don't know. I mean, I suppose that there's nothing preventing them from releasing a bespoke team that has multiple fire teams in it yet, because we only have 2 data points. Like, we don't know. But my guess would be that for the bespoke teams, they're probably going to sit there and balance around a single fire team, because that's the way they can get the most control for these wacky interactions. Because if they, I think having all those weird rules really only works when you have the one fire team. Because when you start having lots of weird rules and then start letting people mix and match, that's when you get the unintended interactions that blow power levels like out of the sky. And when someone finds that, that's when things are problematic.
Okay, question number 2. Do you think you're getting your priests back?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think they're holding that back for another kind of mercenary style thing.
So that's strictly because they're calling it the Hunter Clade, and for Admech, Clade is an organizational unit in the Skitarii legions. So I think it's strictly.
Oh, okay, good to know.
Yeah. Right.
So that's why I think we might get possibly get the Taraxi or something like that, because they are Skitarii.
Think you'll get your Marshal?
That would actually be very interesting. I don't know,
because he's got a bunch of aura kind of things, right?
So he's in Big Hero Returns. He's a lieutenant. He has a reroll 1s bubble.
Is it,
no,
is
I don't want
he
you
an
to have
elite or
that.
an HQ?
No,
yeah,
Not a question.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. He's an okay character. He's not like a massive beatstick. But it could be interesting for them to give him something like it's his little personal hunter retinue. That'd be neat.
Is he an elite or an HQ? Out of curiosity.
He's an HQ.
HQ. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it's time for HQs yet. I'm sure we're gonna get HQs. But not yet. I think.
In terms of pure scale, he would be fairly reasonable. He's an HQ, but he's not like a Space Marine captain or anything. He's just a little bit better than a basic Skitarii. Not by much.
I think if they're sticking by their rules equal wounds 6 wound things, then you could end up with a commissar or whatever from Imperial Guard who's regular dude, 5-up save, but he's gonna end up with 24 wounds. I was
yep.
That seems odd. Not sure. Apart from that, he still sucks, but he has 24 wounds. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that.
Although
they can always break that rule, though.
They can, of course, 100%. Yeah.
But that would be kind of interesting to have a character like that, a guardsman with 24 wounds, because
sounds fun.
Yeah, he's not going to be great, but in narrative sort of fluffy terms, he's going to be very commissary. He's going to be running around the battlefield doing shit, taking fire. It'd be cool.
What if you have a ploy where you can motivate every other guardsman to get something like a free dash or something like that if you off one of your own models?
That would be really funny.
That'd be cool. I'll be okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be really cheeky. I would enjoy that. And they could also just scale the wounds differently. They don't have to. They could use the model just to get it into the ecosystem and give it 15 wounds. There's no rule that they have to stick to that scaling, even though they did it for the infantry units. They could
I have
get back.
A wild, unfounded prediction for the Hunter Clade.
Ooh, I love these. Go.
Perfect.
Oh, you're gonna hate this one.
Oh, that's fine.
They gave me Omnispecs that lets me ignore conceal and heavy cover.
At this point, I feel so bad that I have not let you get your Omnispecs off ever in any of our games. I have teched around it and positioned around it to the point that you've not gotten a single shot. I'd be okay with you having that. I wouldn't like it, but I'd be okay with you having that.
Yeah. It's possible. I'm actually surprised. I would have assumed the Omnispecs did that, right? If you just think Omnispecs, how did it interact with the rules? Removes concealed, right?
Yeah.
No. What does it do out of curiosity?
So it ignores in the checks to determine line of sight, it removes obscurity as a consideration.
Oh.
That's basically it. And it gives the shooter the no cover rule, so they don't gain the automatic retention of the dice.
Yep.
So if someone's concealed in light cover, they're still safe.
Yeah.
Unless you get on the vantage point, at which point that's now canceled. But if someone's in conceal behind heavy cover, they're still hidden. Nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. Okay. And since you only get it with one guy, you can't do your twofer like you used to.
Yeah.
It's very clear where that threat is coming from and the threat band of where that could come from.
Yeah, and so
you can move.
Yeah, the declaration is when you do the omnispecs, you give the buff to one model on your team, and it is against one particular target. So that's it.
Very limited.
It's not. He doesn't get free control of the battlefield like before, like Emmanuel said. It's a very targeted thing.
And how are you currently running them? Like, obviously, it's irrelevant because we're about to move to the Hunter Clades. But right now, what are your thoughts? Are you, one Ranger, one Sicarians, or?
I've just run one Vanguard and a Sicarian group thus far. I'm actually more interested to try the Ranger Vanguard group now, like a full gun line, than I ever was in Kill Team 1. I had zero interest in that before. In this one, it actually is kind of interesting the way activations and things work, because it's very possible to sacrifice little squishy Skitari into a melee guy that's running down at you to block him up. Much more, I think, honestly, more so than it was before.
Right. And Emmanuel, how about you? What faction are you into?
Technically, always orcs, but that's because I've converted every faction into orcs. Right in front of me. I'll give you a little preview of some stupid thing that I put together. I recently learned about the Alpha Legion, and how they just pop up out of nowhere, and no one really knows anything about them. And I saw a really great conversion where I think there were salamanders that were changing, like along this kind of light band, kind of like how people do camo cloaks, changing into Alpha Legion. So I made my aspiring champion. Let's see if you can see this. I fused him with an orc, like he's coming out of with a power fist and a plasma pistol. That's really not coming into focus. Anyway, whatever. So yeah, technically always orcs, but I'm loving commandos. Playing them quite a bit. Breacher Boy seems broken.
Sure.
Legitimately broken. Especially with forward deployment. I think I forget what it's called, Sneaky Git or something like that. Anyway, the one where you can deploy outside of Pentagon. I mean, effectively ignoring terrain and just walking through like a boss. You forward deploy him even if he's a defender, and you effectively quarantine the entire opponent's team to one corner of the board because they don't want to be anywhere within charge range of this guy. The Commando Grot wins games easy and is effectively such a nuisance. It's a really fun team. The only downside to that team is that it's extremely telegraphed. Honestly, like you know what this guy's going to do. You know what this guy's going to do. You know what that game plan is, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really an astute player is going to know what your plan is based on just where you deploy that one guy. It's like, okay, I know this Commando Grot's here. This is the only terrain they can see. I'm just going to hole up on this terrain so that way he won't be able to yeet over there. Done. It's really easy to shut that down as long as you understand the Commandos team. And they're orcs. They're not hard to understand. I also have Deathwatch. I snapped a bunch of arms off of my old Deathwatch models and rekitted them to be properly kitted for this edition, and they're legitimately scary. I mean, the 2 storm shields. That's they do what Marines used to do, where they can be a Swiss Army knife, and in the fluff, it makes so much more sense for the Deathwatch to be the elite Marines because that's technically what they are. I think they're legitimately scary in this.
They are way more scary than basic Marines to me, at least right now.
And being able to just throw a melee beat stick just unabashedly into melee as your last activation in Turning Point 3, and for 1 command point, only in death does duty end. And then he's just there and he gets a free activation at the beginning of the next turn. That's really strong for 1 CP. And that's just really, really strong. what else do I really like with them? Frag cannon. Almost flag.
Oh,
Cannon.
that's what
Not
frag
flag
cannon.
cannon.
Sure,
Flag cannon's from Unreal Tournament.
Yes.
Frag cannon. That it's I can't see myself taking anything else on a heavy gunner. It's
Oh,
just
really?
really
You're
good.
not liking the
Maybe
IHB?
in Furnace Heavy Bolter for
Yeah.
bolter discipline, but then if I'm running them more melee focused or at least skewing towards melee, I don't know how often I would be using bolter discipline.
Right.
Then again, my warriors would have bolters probably. Yeah, but I see the frag cannon having a lot more versatility, especially since the blast template version, is not range pentagon, which it seems like it probably should be, but currently it is not. So to choose either AP1 or blast on anything at infinite range, that's really good.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I've also been really interested in Harlequins. That domino shield or domino screen, whatever it is, that lets them act like Gene Stealers. That seems way too strong. And the fact that they're all breacher boys essentially because they can just jump over the terrain.
It's better.
Yeah.
Once because it doesn't account the vertical terrain as well can.
Yeah.
Your game against Steven, he was definitely playing, and he was playing well with that. The vertical flip belts. He was doing good stuff with that I saw.
Yeah, so those are the three teams, and then Heretic Astartes. I just think they look really strong, really strong in this edition. And much like Death Watch, they do what Marines used to be able to do, which is bring a lot of different options, or at least a mixed kit. And if you need the bodies, you could bring a ton of cultists. Those are the ones that stand out to me. But honestly, Commandos. I mean, I can't snuff GW giving me a beautiful greenskins treatment right at the drop. Commandos are just fun. I've made my own Kit Bash team because I was too hyped to wait for my Octarius box. So, that's probably
I
what I'm
assume you've looked at those models, though. I mean, those are lovely models, right?
I split 2 boxes. So I have a lot of orcs, even though I didn't need them, because I have nefarious plans for all of them. But the more and more I see other people painting the Commandos, the more and more I like my Kit Bash unique ones. Just because they stand out. So it kind of took a little bit of the wind out of my sails because they're beautiful models. Yeah. But now everyone has them.
Everyone has them. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So, but they're beautiful models. I think I might do other stuff to them though.
Sweet. Okay, so a bit of an aside now, kind of keeping it nice and generic. Let's do. What do you think is the best faction? Can't be your faction. Got to change it. And then. So. What do you think is the best faction now, and then what do you think will be the best faction once people know how to play the game? If you see what I mean. I assume that you guys see the difference in the question there, right? Okay.
I'll answer first because I have the less interesting answer. I don't really think about things like that. I'm going to be playing AdMech. I know I'm going to be playing AdMech. So I'm not really too concerned about what the most strong thing is going to be.
Cool.
I'm building other teams for fun and for bat reps, but AdMech are my boys. That's what I do.
Yeah. I admire you.
Pretty strong already.
And I'm jealous of you, and I'm envious of you because I wish I could stick to even if I could stick to 4 factions, but I can't, and I hate it. If I could stick to one
there's
faction,
a problem right there. That's your problem right there, Andrew, because you said 4 factions and held up 10 fingers.
Well,
so you can't even. What is it, man?
Oh no, I'm warp touched. I'm a demon player. That's what it is.
As far as what's strongest right now, there's 2 that stand out pretty obviously. Talons. Really strong right now. A lot of people have had a lot of success. And then Harlequins as well. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're all still learning the terrain and how to efficiently position, to bait out certain moves, and how to even properly set up boards. That's going to be a learning curve for all of us too. So I think
that would be the biggest part of this game. Once figuring out what a balanced board looks like.
And because Harlequins they don't care. and Gene Stealers to a minor degree, but I think Harlequins are a little bit more effective in that. They ignore a lot of this and they break a lot of the rules, which is why I think they do really well, and they have some very good tactics as well. Talon's really strong right now, just because, I mean, honestly, they hurt real bad, and it's a little bit of a shift to try and play cat and mouse with them, and I think that it's a very different game that you might have to play against them versus anyone else, and that's kind of how it was in Kill Team 1, but the problem is in Kill Team 2, they're better a lot.
Yes.
And it's by end of Turning Point 2, they can essentially shut you out of the game if they hurt you enough, and if they got enough of a point lead. It's really hard to kind of make back from that. So I think those are the two boogeymen right now. And I know I'm not blowing anyone's mind by those predictions, because I think that's pretty much common knowledge at this point.
Yeah, sure.
I think teams that, once we get the handle of things, will kind of find some prominence. I mean, Tyranids already people know with the Gene Stealers, but I don't think 10 Gene Stealers is the right answer. I think Warriors are really good too. Yeah. And I think we're going to see a lot of Gene Stealer Warriors teams. I also think Deathwatch is going to get a lot more play. They're really strong, and I think that they have an answer to a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And the other added benefit of that is that with Marines, you can bring infiltrators if you want to. You can bring reavers if you want to.
Can you?
On the same roster, because they're all not in the kill team, but not as Deathwatch, but on the roster.
So has it been determined whether Deathwatch is considered a chapter keyword?
It is, but it specifically states what you can and can't take with the Deathwatch keyword, just in the compendium book. Just says it there.
Right,
it's but tactical Marines and space scouts you cannot take. Everything else is fine.
Right, but in the page about the competitive roster, it says that everyone on your roster must have the same sub-faction keyword.
Yeah, so I don't have my books with me because I foolishly decided I wouldn't need them for tonight's stream. But it says that everything must have... So I don't know the specifics, but it's fine. It's been double-checked. It's everything must... If it has a selectable keyword, then when that keyword is selected, it must be the same.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Which is... So, for example, you know, the obvious one was, can you take witches and Cabalite warriors? Because they have a different selectable keyword. Right now, because it is unselected, yes, you can. Once you select it, but again, I don't know what the specific wording is on that. But because it seemed a bit confusing to me as well at first. But somebody pointed out there's like one word.
So here's the exact wording: operatives that have the same selectable keyword, e.g., chapter, must have the same keyword chosen, e.g., Dark Angels.
Perfect.
So yeah, precisely what you said.
Cool. Yeah. So for
as
example,
it stands now.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to dive into that anymore. But as you can see, you can put multiple keywords on there. But if it's the same one, it has to be the same. So with the Drukhari, you could take both because they're not using the same selectable keyword.
Right.
Yeah. So, are you with me?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Great. Okay. Let's move on before anybody questions it.
We have quorum.
Was there a question in here somewhere? Deathwatch. Yes. And then you were saying somebody else you think is going to be good. Tyranids. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, because they have a little bit of breaking the rules, but I think 10 Gene Stealers isn't the answer. I think I think throwing some bigger bugs in there, some warriors would be really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also really like that now that we've learned more about the game and we all have more games under our belts, everyone was so worried that the only teams that would matter would be veterans and commandos.
Very true.
Everyone was so worried and up in arms. Compendium was trash, GW trash, throw it in the gutter, all this kind of stuff. And I'm just very thankful that with time people have realized that, okay, yeah, no, we can do really well with a lot of these compendium teams. They're shorthand versions of what their full fleshed out versions will be, but they're not garbage, and quite opposite for a lot of them. And I'm really happy about that because you want to play with their favorite teams, and to be shoehorned into being competitive only with veteran guardsmen or commandos, that would have been unfortunate. So I'm glad it didn't turn out that way.
Yeah.
What I would enjoy with the Hunter Clade, even I think more so than super awesome rules, would be a set of tac ops for them that are all viable. Because I know that the
what you wish for. The commandos ones are garbage.
Yeah, I know exactly. So, the fact that you've got those 3 that you can add to your pool, like, that doesn't really do much for you. But I would very much enjoy having that option.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I assume you're going to get them, right? Like,
I think that's part of the plan.
The
I think
3 faction tac ops are part of every faction. If you don't get them, I will owe you a pint. Yeah, there you go. I didn't want to say anything real because I was like, you never know. Oh, crap. So amusingly, Holy Mio asks, what are really bad? What do you think are the worst compendium teams that you would never choose? I don't really think of it that way. I've got to be honest, but I am going to give it an answer because that's more fun. But but I haven't given it any real thought.
No, I haven't either. Let me
Okay, so I'll say one. But this isn't the faction. This is the kill team, like the fire team. I really do think Marines. I don't think assault intercessors and heavy intercessors are very good. I'm just going to throw those 2 out there. But within the faction, they've got great options. As you say, I love the Death Watch. I think they're good. But if I had to go for a faction, I don't even know.
Can we say Crew?
I don't think the Crew are bad, though.
I don't think they're bad, but I don't think they're as strong as other ones. Yeah.
Are you sure? I'm not. I haven't looked into it. I've heard there's like 2 guys in my Discord that only play Crew. And they've said that they are happy with Crew in this edition.
Really?
I would have could just be because they're coming from, the old edition, so like they'd be happy with anything. But
how do the sisters look to you, E-Man? I haven't looked at them at all.
They look fine.
Okay.
They look fine. I don't think they're bad. I don't think it's true that they could take infinite icons.
It is,
or not infinite, but all those icons. I don't think that's true. That would be very. If that survives in errata, I'll eat my shoe.
Anyone that went out and bought 9 icon bearers deserves what they get. Wait, I feel.
You know someone that did that, or you?
No,
just
I'm saying if anyone did, it's like they're playing a different level of the game.
I would have loved if you actually did know someone who's just like, yeah, fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do this, and you're gonna like it.
Yeah.
Now they just have to proxy them. It's like, no, they just have bolters. Ignore the icons.
Has anyone been playing Standard Guard?
Yes, actually. They're not terrible. Okay. Yeah. Some people like them. I actually think if I had to, dig my heels in it anywhere, it would be that I think they are really good at killing Custodes. You can take
the guns for it.
You 2 grenade launchers. You're firing 2 cracks at them. You can take 2 melters. You could. I mean, you'll kill Custodes 1 a turn with that. If they mess up positioning, you'll take 1 out. So I actually think they're in a very good position there. Obviously, they aren't quite the same as the veteran guardsmen, but I don't think they're bad.
Yeah, I'm looking through the table of contents right now, and honestly, like I went with Crude as for the memes. But like honestly, looking at the whole list, like I think everything's got legs. I mean, even let's even kind of let's do the inverse of what you were just asking about, Alex, and talk about the greenskins, right? I still think they have chops. I still think that they are very reasonable to choose over doing commandos. I think there's something to that. If you want to take Ludas, Burnas, that's interesting. Commandos, a little interesting. But honestly, having the equipment for commandos, there's a couple good options, but they're kind of as well. And you can kind of bridge a little bit of the gap between greenskins and commandos by going in with by modifying your guys with a little bit of their equipment, like the boss poles, necessity. The targeting thing, I'm putting that on a Rocket Boy. That's absolutely great as well. And most importantly, they do have access to the same one tactic where they can shrug off one of the attacks, which in the games that we've played, Alex, you've seen how disappointing that is when you get enough shots through. It's like, oh, I kill him. It's like, actually, no. Let me introduce you to this 1 CP tactic that just invalidates your shot. So I think even green skids, when you compare them to commandos, I think they're fine.
So you know what?
I don't think there's anything.
I know because I have to give an answer, I am going to say greenskins. There you go. Thank you for reminding me they exist. I had forgotten. I think they're bad. Although, Micromancer points out he thinks Eldar are in a tough spot. And I've played Eldar, and I didn't do well, but I had mainly put that down to my own lack of skill. Looking at them, they have some... I can't even say they have interesting options. Like, they do. They have some interesting things they can do.
Is they really don't have a lot of melee.
Sure.
So they can... Yeah, and that's a big shift from having Banshees and having Scorpions and from the previous edition. And I know that kind of mixed assault was very powerful for the elves. I haven't played against Eldar yet. I'm hoping to soon. I just have to wrestle Will into an LGS to play him. But the part that makes things seem interesting to me is the whole silent snipers with the rangers. Just me thinking about it, having no experience seeing it on the table yet.
Yeah.
And it just depends on what the terrain's going to play like and how people are going to be able to deal with that. Because to be able to shoot at and not get shots, that could have legs. But again.
So I agree with that, and I will say the last time I played Eldar, I ran Dire Avengers and Rangers, but it was on a really janky map that had like 3 levels of vantage point. One of which, and like the opponent had access to all 3 levels in his deployment zone, and it was before we realized that vantage point doesn't negate heavy cover, so it gave me a very skewed view on how Eldar perform, and I should obviously play them again. But I obviously came away thinking, you know, it was against Marines, and I was getting shots off. It's not like I wasn't doing anything, but I wasn't doing much. But need to replay them. Yeah.
Did you feel like that? Like you suffered from a objective standpoint? Like, did you feel like you were shoehorned into staying in a certain terrain that you couldn't push forward to get those objectives?
Yeah, but mainly because he had 4 guys on a vantage point that I couldn't get any cover from. You know, like that kind of skewed the game.
The map was busted.
Yeah. No, it was. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm gonna shift it a little bit to, because this is something I've been thinking about, and obviously I'm gonna make a video about it soon because I think it's actually really interesting as something to discuss. And so I already kind of have my answer locked and loaded. But what do you feel makes a team fun to play in this new game? I can give mine first if you want proof that I'm not stealing your answer this time. So
no, I can go.
Okay.
I can go.
Yeah. I'll take notes. All right.
Options.
Okay.
The teams that I've played that I've really enjoyed have been teams that have options, whether that's really interesting tactics that are pretty powerful, that can really sway an activation or an entire turning point. Having 3 or even 4 APL, so there's a lot you can do with a single model or a single activation, operative as they're called now. Or even the bespoke teams like Commandos, where they all have their kind of A-team specialty, and they all have a unique thing that they can do that can really, they give you a lot of options on the board. So I think any team that has options, just in the course of the game, I think is fun. And Marines do that well because of the 3 APL, as with Harlequins with 3 APL, because that gives you a lot more flexibility and options on the board.
My answer would be similar, but adding interesting mustering on top of that. Because the thing that I really like about Kill Team is the muster, and that just adds this whole other level to this game that makes it so interesting when you're sitting there playing someone, and that we largely knew by the end of Kill Team 2018 what someone was going to be playing based on their roster. But the fact that, especially with me with AdMech, having the options to do weird builds depending on the mission I was seeing and the opponent I was playing, I really enjoyed that aspect. And I enjoy that with the new AdMech as well, for Forge World.
So, can you say a bit more about that? Because obviously, a lot of people feel that we've lost a lot of the list building, and you're saying that's one of the things you fundamentally enjoy. How do you feel you still have it, I guess?
I think AdMech / Forge World is in a good spot for that specifically, just because in the 20-man roster, you can take the Ranger Fire Team, the Vanguard Fire Team, and enough Sicarians to build a full Sicarian kill team out of 2 fire teams if you want. Okay. And then I think still throw in I think that still leaves you with one more model to build a Skitarii Vanguard or Alpha, or Vanguard or Ranger Alpha, with like the beat stick loadout if you want to do that. So AdMech still has a lot of options from the muster if they want to play that way, which I think.
And then in addition to that, just to say, like, with those 2 Sicarian fire teams, you can also swing them into one, whether you want to go more power swords, more taser goad, etc., depending on what your matchup. So by having all of those, if you wanted to go full Sicarian, you also have the ability to mix and match your one if you're going 1-on-1 with your small boys, big boys.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. How, do you feel that the equipment is still just as interesting? Or now that you've kind of perhaps started to get to grips with it a bit, and you're like, I know what equipment I'm giving people.
Yeah, I generally know what equipment
I found that as well. I've got to be honest. Originally, it was like, oh, now we have our list building in the equipment. But actually, it's like, not really.
The one thing I found with the equipment is I do think it's worth for every player to play the games and experiment with them, and not just take the internet's gospel for this is the equipment you should use for your team. Because I've found that I like a slightly different loadout than what a lot of people are saying on Discord.
Oh, sure.
But that's what works for the way I play.
Yeah.
And not everyone plays the same way. So I think that every player will largely gravitate towards the same set of equipment, probably. But it'll take some experimentation for everyone to figure out exactly what that is for themselves.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Suddenly,
I'm a big fan of the climbing rope. Rope on the Rocket Boy. Oof.
Well, he's got to be up there. He's a scare. Don't you just... So I'm going to say this. This is one thing I really enjoy. I love that I can shoot things and know I'm going to hit something. Even with factions that can't shoot. Like, for example, with me, it was the Gene Stealer cults. I was like, wow, I can actually hit something with a heavy gun now. That's really cool. Whereas in the old edition, you literally would never take a heavy weapon with Gene Stealer cults. You also wouldn't take
too much of a gamble.
But yeah. And now, same for orcs. You see that rocket launcher, you're like, I'm gonna kill something. Wow.
Rocket launcher, Daka boy, sniper boy.
Yeah.
Oh,
such a shooty army. I know. Yeah.
That's new for me. I've always gone full melee.
Full melee. Wow. Yeah.
So it's a whole new realm for me, and I'm loving it.
Definitely. I suppose for me to answer the same question, clearly we've all come to the same conclusion, really. But I hadn't phrased it as options. I hadn't gone quite that high concept, perhaps. I was thinking, I really like having APL. When I'm playing a 3 APL, like, ignore the Custodes, the 4 APL, that's like, I mean, it's great, but we're not getting another 4 APL faction, right? That's their thing. Talking about commanders, we might get higher APL commanders. Like, they might be higher points, higher APL. That could be really cool, but that's not get back to that. But you know what? 3 APL, I really feel like each guy is doing something. And I feel like each guy is, in like kind of the pitch for the old kill team was, these are your guys. And now, they're not your guys, they're your team. But when I have 3 APL, I feel like they're my guys because every single activation, they do a lot of things.
Right.
And you could be boring and you could just bolt to discipline and you could shoot twice and then run away, right? And you probably will do that a few times. But you can also, move, sabotage, shoot. Like, that's like super cool, move, action, shoot. And it's like, and it's very thematic. Yeah, indeed.
I love that.
and you can really do things, and it just feels good to the point that I don't think Marines are going to be, top of the tops here, right? But I'm having much more fun playing them because of their APL. And when I then go over, and if I really think about, okay, what is actually going to be the best faction, I think you've got to have a certain number of bodies, and I think 5 is too low. I don't think a 5-body faction is... Well, ignore Custodes. I don't think Marines is what I'm saying. I don't think Marines are going to be a top faction. I don't think they have the bodies. I think you need to be looking kind of 8. I would say 8 minimum, purely because of Harlequins. But if you ignore Harlequins, I'd probably say 10 minimum. I think that's the competitive team. But obviously, all of those are then 2 APL, and I just inherently find them less interesting.
Yeah, I think Harleys make up for being lower on activations by blowing it out of the water with APL.
Yeah.
Because even though they're 8s, they have another 8 activations, awesome. And that's another 6 APL over a standard 10 2 APL army. So I think with Marines and other... Did I math it wrong? I mathed it wrong. Yeah, I mathed it wrong. Another 4 APL still. Yeah. The ceiling, I think, in those teams is going to come from efficiently using that APL, though, because I found that in turns where I just didn't have the option or the... Like, if I had a model that, a Marine, that I didn't use all of their APL,
yes.
It was really crushing to that model's efficiency. So being able to structure your entire plan from the point of deployment to try and maximize that APL and try and daisy chain people as they're moving by for this guy taps that objective then goes. And then the next turn, another guy swings by to tap that objective and goes to a different spot. So that way you're not having a guy squatting on a point, tapping an objective, and then hopefully shooting, but then that's only 2, right? So that ceiling from really pushing that low model count to its maximum efficiency to deal with the 10 models is going to be using all your APL, but then also expecting and planning for Overwatch, like making that part of the plan. Because Overwatch seems kind of accidental in a lot of games right now. People aren't building their situation for it. They're out of activations, and then it's their turn. It's like, well, who can Overwatch? That's not the question you should be answering, and that's where the high level play is going to come in, because you're going to have that plan for the Overwatch. And I'm not saying no one's doing it, but I'm saying that that's not part of the vocabulary as far as like the whole mission objective yet. And that's going to be once that becomes once that gets ingrained into like a Grey Knight player or a Marine player's vocabulary, and Overwatch is their 4th APL. They're kind of thinking of it that way, like, I'm going to get my Overwatch because I'm doing this. Or they use it as a threat, like, I'm sitting here, they're not going to come anywhere within this view, which is covering this and this objective, because if they try to come for these objectives, they're going to get a ton of shots at their face. So the Overwatch is really something that I think is not as utilized yet, or at least not as understood. That's being diminutive. Not as maximally utilized by these elite teams yet, and I think that's where the ceiling's going to come for these smaller model counts.
That's actually why when I play Harlequins, I deliberately lose half my team turn 1, because that way they can't overwatch me. Big brain play. Yeah. Some guy in chat, Zach Thackle, 3 APL really feels superhuman fast without being literally faster. I agree.
So
I think
that was
it's very...
something I was starting to say.
Go for it.
Was that 3 APL to me, the fact that you have 50%, assuming someone has 3 circle baseline, being 50% faster is wild. And that's one of the big things I've noticed, because I played Metallica in Kill Team 2018. So I was used to being zippy. Like I advanced every turn and moved around the board. I've lost a lot of speed.
Yes.
And that's a huge thing that I've felt, and I'm having to work. I was used to being able to kind of, maybe turns 1 and 2 sort of creep a little bit, because I knew I had the ability to those last couple turns spill out fast and get to where I needed to go. I can't do that anymore. I have to be, if I want to get across the board, I have to be pressing every single turn.
Yeah.
And it's a big change.
Definitely. I think it's very interesting what they've done there. But I can't fully comprehend it, I only have a small brain. But the fact that you can turn an APL into whatever you want it to be, whether it's offensive, defensive, movement, is really interesting. As you say, it's an option. It's just an option. You have 1 extra option per guy every turn. And as I've said elsewhere, is that I think that, and as I've probably said already in this, I think that the high level play is all about movement and all about flanking. And I think APL allows you to get that move dash.
Right.
And you know what? That dash, that extra 3 inches, is going to be far more valuable to you than shooting twice. Like, once we know what we're doing, a dash is much more.
I think my biggest disappointment in the game right now is that when they were, I could have just misheard this, but when they were doing, it was either like the initial like faction reviews of the 2 bespoke teams, the veteran guardsmen and the commandos, they made some comment about how the leaders have the ability to grant an extra APL to someone, which is huge.
Okay. Yeah.
And so when I heard that, I thought that meant that was like a leader thing, not a leader thing for those 2 teams. And that makes me very sad.
Wait for 9/17.
Right? I mean,
yeah.
I hope
Cross
I get
your fingers,
really
bud.
do.
You might get that.
Yeah. I mean, that could be
I
it.
think it would be, I wish that everyone had that. That would make it, the ability for everyone to send 1 operative to 3 APL a turn would be really cool and open up a lot of game space.
Yeah.
We talk about how awesome the White Dwarf releases are going to feel.
Oh, let's talk about
because
that.
I've had a lot of thoughts about how they're planning on giving us content. The roadmap that they gave us, which we were, clamoring for. Give us a roadmap for Kill Team 2018. And we have every 3 months, we know we're going to get something at some point over those 3 months. And then to set this precedent now, hopefully, maybe not every White Dwarf, but on frequent White Dwarfs, fingers crossed, we get this releases like that. It's very, very similar. And again, everyone who knows me very well knows I talk about Legion a lot because Legion does so much right. And this seems like a page out of how Legion does their releases, because every month to month and a half to 2 months, new units get injected into the game. New units. Not for all factions. Usually it's a pair, like for the Galactic Republic and Separatists, or for whatever, right? Star Wars stuff. So not everyone gets something, but they're always injecting just a little bit into the game. And for people that follow the meta and the tournament scene, it shakes up the meta extremely. Every time there's a new thing that gets released, list building gets different, countering gets different, meta shifts, all this kind of stuff. Subtle, but enough to keep that interest and keep that excitement. So while some people are a little annoyed that they're getting forced to buying a White Dwarf, not that much. Also, Battlescribe's a thing, so. But the reality of it is, people, this is the attention we're kind of clamoring for, and having periodic releases, and on this thing that it's going to be on store shelves, at Warhammer stores, at your LGS, that's going to have new kill team, new kill team, new kill team, injecting that, getting that attention. More players are going to see it. More people are going to get excited about it. They're going to flip through it and be like, oh, this seems interesting. I'll give this a shot. Where's a rule book kind of thing? That kind of persistent release schedule, even though it's tidbits and breadcrumbs, I think is going to do wonders for expanding the game, but also keeping it interesting as it goes along. I'm really excited for it, obviously.
Do you have thoughts on White Dwarf releases, Alex?
Sorry, say again?
Do you have thoughts on the White Dwarf release?
Same thoughts. We're the same. We're the same person. Like you can't tell us apart. You're not the only one. Our brains can't either.
You know what? 2 people, 1 channel. I don't get it. You know, like, yeah.
I have the big beard. He has the smaller beard.
There you go. I'm actually really conflicted about.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
lay it on us.
Okay,
what's
so
giving you pause?
Ignore the new kill team. I follow some 40k. They've released a few things in. Oh, okay, so first off, old kill team. What did we get? We got Kroot. We got Demons. We got bad releases. Nobody was happy with them. They were bad. But let's assume that we get actual, legit, full, good content. So let's ignore quality. Let's just say, yes, it will be good. It will be good as Octarius. And if you like Octarius, you'll like this. From a marketing perspective, I agree. Visibility, really good. And let's assume that people buy White Dwarf. I don't know. I don't. Until now, because I have to, unfortunately. But let's assume that is also good. And let's assume that the majority of people that buy White Dwarf are 40k players. And they actually read the articles that aren't 40k, and they will start seeing kill team. Good. Much in the same way that I think kill team content is mandatory. We need regular kill team content on the Warcom site because we need visibility. So that's great. Big fan. What don't I like about it?
Okay, I'm scared for what you're about to say.
No.
You were just like, here's 4 positive things. So where's your conflict here?
I know, I'm convincing myself already. I don't know, I think I have never viewed White Dwarf as a valuable magazine. I've always viewed it as GW fluffing themselves. I viewed it as... what was it? It was Harlequins that in 40k. For the Psychic Awakening cycle, Harlequins only got a White Dwarf thing, and fine, maybe it was good, I actually don't know, but I'm just thinking phenomenal. Oh, okay, but as someone that doesn't know that, I'm like, I feel like they're doing my faction dirty. I want a good book. Not a good book, I mean, I like books. I have just behind this green screen, I have a small stack about yay thick of 40k codexes, which I don't play 40k. And I have that stack of codexes because I like them, right? There's something I'll buy even when I don't use them. And I want that for my faction. To get downgraded from an Octarius level book to a magazine, I don't know, like, I don't even know what I'm really complaining about here. I'm not really complaining because I think it's fine, it's good. And it will give people rules for their 40k armies for something they were already buying, so we should get more people fine. But I don't know. I clearly need to formulate my argument better. I don't normally come up with an issue when it says to coming up with negative.
Finish your thought. Sorry.
No, I normally don't have to think too much about coming up with the negatives. I'm a very negative person, but on this one, I seem to be struggling to really get that across. I'm more concerned about other people's views.
Positivity is
contagious. That's what it is. But I'm more concerned about other people's views, I guess.
Yeah.
Even you talk.
It comes from a place of experience of being treated dirty by White Dwarf. I mean, you started out by talking about how we would get releases and they wouldn't have commanders, or we'd get so there were lackluster releases. That's abundantly clear. We know that it's about 10 pages, right? Coming in this next White Dwarf.
16. Yeah.
16. There we go. Yeah, which is roughly about it.
Lunch. Which is so it's 16 pages of rules as far as we can tell. And the other two teams were 13 and 15, I think.
Yeah. So it might have some interesting missions in there. Who knows? It might be all AdMech stuff. Who knows? But a lot of people complained. This is a counterpoint to buying a magazine, and I've been thinking about this. A lot of people complained, why should I buy a compendium if I'm only going to use 1 or 2 pages from it? Well, yeah. White Dwarf's a lot cheaper. Yep. Yeah. It's the counterpoint that I will say that's a negative is for a tournament player and someone who wants to stay competitive, you need to know everything about all the other factions. So for someone who is happy about buying a compendium, so I can read all the other factions to know what I have to tech against and be prepared for, now I'm going to have to buy all these White Dwarfs for factions that I'm not planning on playing, right? So there's a negative there, and I think there's a lot of negative sentiment just because White Dwarf has done us dirty before. But I don't see it as a downgrade. I just see this as a way that they can get it out faster to us, and I'm choosing to stay positive in that regard because the alternative would be we're waiting until 3-6 months from now to get several factions all at once, and then no one was getting anything for a few months. So
no, I totally.
I think it's going to be a net positive. I'm staying optimistic and hoping that Alex gets happy with what he's getting in the next week.
No, I mean it's AdMech. I'll be happy no matter what.
You say that now.
yeah. Just wait. Just wait.
Even if it's not, even if the Hunter Clade isn't competitive, I'll still enjoy it. I'll find something to do with it that I will enjoy.
That's a good sentiment. I like that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like so you and I have our names because we're competitive threats. Like we can go to a tournament and we are contenders to be in the top.
Yes, but what about Emmanuel? Sorry, carry on.
You mean the guy who actually won, SoCal Open?
Yeah. Glass, we're part of an elite upper echelon of few players that have actually taken down Matt Holy. Oh, you're gonna take a dig at me, I'll take a dig at Alex.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, I had to drug him before the game, but it managed to work out, so it was fine.
Yeah. Hey man, gotta play dirty.
It is what it is. All's fair in love and war.
Love and Warhammer.
No. How they haven't done a Warhammer Plus show that's called Love and Warhammer, I don't know.
Yeah, that is a marketing opportunity.
Yeah.
It would be an isekai type anime.
I'm into it.
Where
Okay.
it's just a bunch of random Xenos factions in some high school.
Okay.
And it will be garbage.
Yeah.
And I will eat that up.
Oh, man, I don't know. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. We're getting way off topic. I feel like I totally cut you off with my dumb joke, Alex. I'm sorry, but right.
Welcome to our lives.
Yeah.
Warhammer's really dumb.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I get that we spend so much money and time, and some people want to interact with that money and time that they spend by taking it very seriously, and good for them, no issues. But it's really dumb, and not in a good way. I think it's unironically dumb. It's not like they know it's dumb and they're leaning hard into it.
It is ironically dumb. Historically, it's been more modern. This is what I've understood from talking with people who've been in the game a long time. The original releases of Warhammer were very clearly satire, really clearly.
I agree. I agree, but we're not there anymore.
No, we're not.
Right? Okay, so you guys know Aaron Dembski-Bowden, right?
Who?
The Black Library author?
Oh, I listen to my books. I never see the covers.
Oh, fair enough. Well, he's one of the authors. He's generally considered to be one of the best. I don't even know what ones he's done.
I think he might be the one who did the Night Lords off books.
Yes,
Is that right?
Yep, that's him.
Yeah, I know who
He
you're talking
did
about.
Hell's Reach, The Night Lords. He just did whatever the latest Horus Heresy one was. I don't know. He, on a Twitter thread that I randomly saw about 6 months ago, started pointing out that as he was writing his next novel, whatever it is, he realized that he went out and he did like the whole Twitter thread of, is this something my Space Marines are saying, or are these lyrics from 80s power metal bands? And they were indistinguishable. You could not tell. And I was like, that's funny, but 40k is serious, and it's being taken seriously, and that's not what you want.
Question.
Yeah.
Have you read or listened to Brutal Cunning?
Yes, I listened to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you take that seriously? Because it's fantastic.
No, of course not. I mean, that's the thing, though, isn't it? Like, Space Marines are serious. You know.
Yeah.
Everything else, like, there's a lot of good in 40k. And like, what's the other one? Gaunt's Ghosts. I just recently went through all of the audiobooks they have of that. Loved them. And they're serious.
Yeah.
They're serious, and I have no issues with them. I think they've done really well. But for some reason, as soon as you put a Space Marine in there, all I can see is an emotionally stunted child. Like,
well, I mean, that's
always.
They're supposed to be like.
The Emperor's a bad dad.
I know, but that's funny. Like, and they're making it serious.
Yeah, no, I was gonna tell you, like, it's the Space Marines that are giving you that.
Yes,
because
it is.
it's definitely not, because Xenos and
I agree.
Malleus, I've gone through those two Eisenhorn books so far, and they're both very good. The Eisenhorn stuff is very good. The Orc stuff is amazing. Prophets of Wa, Brutal Cunning, all that stuff is absolutely amazing.
Yep.
But that's because, I mean, orcs, there's 42 types of squig. What more do you need to say about orcs?
No, indeed, yeah.
So regarding authors, these are the black.
We're doing a book club now.
Can you notice the theme?
Okay, I see. You've got a thing going there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree. It's Space Marines. I don't like them. I've met them. What? I've read 1 or 2 books that I think are genuinely good that involve Space Marines, and then I've probably read about 2 dozen that are genuinely bad, and I cannot get through. And it's because Space Marines, I believe.
Which ones do you recommend?
Hell's Reach.
Okay, yeah.
Hell's Reach, that is by Aaron Dembski-Bowden. I really like Hell's Reach. Get back to me.
I was curious about the I Am Alfarius.
Is it called I Am Alfarius?
I think that might be the subtitle.
I recently read one of the Alpha Legion ones, because about a year ago I got interested in Alpha Legion, so I always like to read some fluff whilst I'm thinking about them. And it was like the latest Alpha Legion one, whatever it was. Bored stiff.
Oh, Head of the Hydra.
Could have been that.
Yeah, that came out this year.
So just thinking, about story writing in general. Superheroes aren't interesting unless they have a flaw, right? Like, Superman is legitimately boring. Like,
it depends how postmodern you want to get, doesn't it?
Yeah, fair. But he's boring. Superheroes with flaws are interesting.
Sure.
Or people who have to surmount incredible odds are interesting. So I think stories where Space Marines are like the opposition in some way are fascinating because they're so big and powerful that to hear like how a normal person has to deal with them, like, it's fascinating. And so, for anyone who wants to read the Eisenhorn books, I won't get too into it because spoilers, but there becomes a point where they come across a Space Marine-ish figure that is absolutely horrifying for them to deal with. It's just one. And because they're regular humans, like, it conveyed just how terrifying they actually are in the fluff, which was cool. Because until that point, I was used to playing them on a table and pointing a plasma at them and just deleting a couple Marines.
And they're only
huh?
T4,
No,
so they're dead. Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I think from a literary standpoint, one of the big issues with Age of Sigmar, for example, something I just don't care about. The reason I could never get into the fluff there, because obviously I gave it a lot of leeway when it first released 5 years ago now, or 6 years, whatever. Is they wanted to obviously push their new faction, but their new faction's boring, and I don't care about it. And they refuse to talk about normal humans, people I can relate to. And like, seriously, if they had put one Stormcast in a book filled with normal humans and just had their reaction and how they interacted with that guy, suddenly I'm interested in Stormcast. That's interesting. Why does he act that way? And they're on a quest, whatever, who cares? But it's like, that, yeah. And they don't seem to do that with Marines either. Maybe there is one out there where they have a single Marine, which is the kind of thing you get in Inquisitor books, so inherently more interesting. But you have a relatable standpoint, although is anything relatable in 40k, hard to say. But sorry, some people in chat were saying the first Necromunda Delac rules were a separate supplement mag that came free with White Dwarf. Right? As you can tell, I'm going back about half an hour now. I'm terrible at reading chat. Dexterello doesn't like the new kill team. He's going over to Necromunda. That's fair enough. Fair enough. Can't win them all.
No,
Can't win them all.
Please. It's fun, I promise.
Well, he's been around long enough. He must have played some games, I'm sure. Yeah. Academic Chris points out ADB's Grey Knight's book is also good. So, yes, I've read that and I liked that. I think that was the second most palatable Marine book that I've read. I can't really tell you why. It could have been because it kind of had everything Grey Knight in it. Like, it had their betrayal with the Space Wolves. It had them killing the civilians because of an Inquisitor. It had them killing the Demon Primarch Angron. It had it. That's all in one book. So it's like, oh, okay, it's not bad. There's a lot going on there. Then Bright Raven UK, just listening to the first Caiaphas Cain book, and I think I might like him more than Gaunt because he's always looking at the best way to not get shot at. Yes, I think everyone just agrees that Caiaphas Cain is the best series in 40k. Is there any competition to that? Have you guys read it?
Nope.
Oh, boys. Caiaphas Cain.
I feel like we just made Dad sad.
You did.
Yeah, we really did.
Caiaphas Cain. Caiaphas Cain. It's okay.
He's not angry, he's just upset.
No. I could sell it to you easy. It's Commissar, similar to Gaunt's Ghosts. His entire shtick is he's a coward. There you go. But he keeps accidentally defeating the enemies of the Imperium by accident. He's trying to run away. He accidentally runs his artillery company into the enemy forces that were flanking the Imperial Guard. He happens to defeat them, and the Inquisitor pops along and says, "Oh, well done." And he, not wanting to get executed, is all like, "I knew they were coming, and I did that deliberately." There you go. That's every book that he's in. It's amazing. I would thoroughly recommend. Academic Chris continues with, I mean, Superman is interesting when he has to be human. Captain America is interesting when he has to make choices between things like the ideals and institutions. The POV GK was also a literal man-child meant for pity. That was relatable. I don't think obviously none of us are man-children. We're all very mature adults. You know.
Well, we spent an hour and a half talking about Plastic Army Boys.
Yeah.
What's more... Yeah. Alright. Okay. Right. Dex says September 4th they played their last edition of Kill Team. He participated in it. Yeah, go ahead and drop the link, Dex. Why not? It's a shame. So, just for you two, Dexterello has been around in the Kill Team community for ages now. He's been very salty since Kill Team 2. I have noticed that. I haven't interacted with him about it, but I've seen him there. It's always a shame to see old players go. Like, let's talk about that now. That seems to be a thing we're talking about. Why not? And certainly I was really feeling a lot of pressure as someone with an early copy to kind of convince people to play the new edition. But like, how do you do that when I believe GW has created a game that has to be played, not thought about? And so all I could say was, play the game. Please just play the game. I cannot convince you with words that it is better. Please play the game and you will see that it is better. And I think actually that has held true for most people, but obviously some people are still like, nah, I don't think it's better. How have you guys experienced that?
People dig in their heels and don't like change. Like as much as you know the community wants to fix things that are wrong, you know, overall everyone would have liked, I think in an ideal world people would have liked, tweaks to make the game we had perfect, because then we keep the same game we're familiar with. But that's not what happened, and frankly I don't know that could have happened, the tweaks to make the old one perfect.
Would have been a lot of tweaks.
Almost
like a new edition they would need to make.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just, I think it's just, the people resist something new. And so it's just, you gotta accept that something new is coming. And
no, sorry, I'm more meaning, because yes, I agree. I think a lot of people just don't like change. But let's assume that other people have genuinely thought, wow, this looks really interesting, I want to play it. And they've played it and it's like, oh, I don't like it. Like, have you experienced that? Have you actually experienced any people legitimately giving it a go and saying, nah, it's not for me. I'm going to play Magic the Gathering.
I've gone through about 3 or 4 teaching games at this point, teaching new players. Only one of them was brand new to wargaming. The rest of people were coming from Kill Team 1. And a little bit of growing pains, but in the same breath, I'm a massive cheerleader for the edition. So injecting all that positivity while I'm teaching, and then also drawing direct contrast to how things used to be, and emphasizing how much the mechanic and the gameplay element that you're interacting with now, as opposed to how it used to be, is so much more fluid and so much more enjoyable to execute. I think that has gone a long way of shading people's impressions of their first game. But it's there's a hesitancy for the new system. I've noticed, because it's too different from how 40K is. I've seen that argument a lot as well. And it is. And I've seen people mentioning that they plan to keep playing the old system and teach their friends the old system, because their intent is to ultimately play 40K primarily and not Kill Team. So they want to play a system that more closely emulates 40K.
Sure.
I'd argue that old Kill Team only emulates it by the names of the phases. There's way more different than there is similar as far as your actual execution.
If your plan is to grow into playing 2,000 point games of Big Hammer, Combat Patrol really is, like the 500 points, that really is the right thing to start with.
I would probably say scale down from there as opposed to scale up from Kill Team. Like, if that's your goal, like, hey, you've only built 200 points, play 200 points of Warhammer. I mean, we're saying this as people that played Kill Team for 3 years. I don't know why I'm saying that. It's not like I didn't like the game, you know? But I had always been, I want to play Kill Team, and in the back of my mind, then at some point I want to play 40K. And I'd never approached it with, oh, I want to play 2,000 points, but I've only painted 3 models. So,
as someone who's played both and plays both, there are transferable skills, but playing, like, it doesn't really give you... Playing games of Kill Team versus playing games of small Big Hammer, you're not going to learn anything more doing one than you would the other if your goal is to go to big 2K games.
Right.
I also think a little bit of the hesitancy on this new edition is that some people see it as too simple. I've heard that here and there. Too simple, too easy, not as complex, not as in depth, not as much to sink my teeth into as the old edition. And while while there is that to certain degrees, like we talked about earlier with list building and mustering, it's simplified to a certain degree, and not as unique as far as the options that you have to make things for yourself. I think there's a lot of hidden complexity in this game. Like I referenced before, and we didn't even get into it, and we don't have time to get into it now. But barricades, just barricades. It's 2 sentences, 3 sentences in the setup, and I could spend an hour talking about barricades alone and optimal barricade placement and all the whole thought process and considerations for that. So there is a lot of depth and a lot of unexplored depth in this game as it is already. So I don't think viewing it as a simpler game is necessarily a negative thing. It just allows you to free up a lot of that mental bandwidth for more complex considerations, because you're not focusing so much on the math and the statistics of +1, -1, what's your save, what's your invuln, what's your injury roll, all that kind of stuff. All that just gone. And you're free to think about more complex kind of strategy level things.
Yeah, nope, I agree. I think that, you know, at its, as I said this earlier, at its absolute core, you're doing about 4, maybe 5 different things. That you have 4 options every time you activate a model, but the nuance is what makes the game. And actually, Moonkey Mod asks, does 40k have more or less tactical nuance compared to Kill Team now? Alex, I assume you can answer that better than I can. But what I will say is that when I was with Stephen Box from Vanguard Tactics 2 weeks ago, obviously he's a big 40k player. He's won tournaments and stuff. His entire channel is based around 40k, helping you get better at 40k, teaching it. And off air, he was just as excited about the game, if not more so, than on air. Like, 2 of his crew came along after the game once the cameras were off, and he was just, and they're 40k players, and he's just saying them, you guys need to play Kill Team. Like, this is really good. This is I can't quote him verbatim, but he was saying, like, every decision is a tactical decision more so than 40k. You know, that could be new thing supported by Games Workshops, already has all the models, so he could just port it straight over, excited about the channel and the game, etc. Like, it might be a combination of factors, but he was saying the words, and I have no reason to not believe him, you know.
I think the thing you learn in Kill Team that would take longer to learn in Big Hammer is precision. Because you have less going on, you have to be precise and on the nose with everything you're doing if you're going to play well. And that's a lot easier to learn when you're playing hour-long games with 4 to 14 models, as opposed to probably when you're, I mean, I think people, you know, after a couple games to learn the rules, people are going to be playing hour-long games. Playing Big Hammer games at, you know, if you're playing casually, even between 2 experienced players, it's 2.5 to 3 hours. And that's between 2 people who know what they're doing. When Will and I first did our first 2,000 point game, like a year and a half ago, I think we made it through 2 turns in about 5 hours.
So bad.
It was bad.
Yeah.
And Will and I play really long games anyway, but it was still very bad. But so one thing I've received compliments on from opponents in Big Hammer games is my precision.
Right.
And yeah, I position my units very well, and that's very much a skill I've transferred from Kill Team.
Right.
The one thing I think I've picked up from Kill Team, or from Big Hammer, which I'm starting to transfer back into Kill Team, is a lot more broad picture focus. And like kind of planning many turns ahead as opposed to just 1 turn ahead and thinking across an entire battlefield. So that's something that I've transferred back. But in terms of like which is more tactical, they're both very well. Maybe Kill Team's more tactical and Big Hammer's more strategic. I don't know. But certainly playing Kill Team is in no way, shape, or form like the lesser game or the game like that small brain people play. Like it's not true at all. It's an intense game.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is exactly what Kill Team is supposed to be. It's meant to be the tactical version of the strategy game, right? Because strategy goes beyond just the game. As we were just saying, Kill Team, list buildings, it's not there as much in the new Kill Team because we are now focused on tactics. Can you flank instead of, can you have the wherewithal about you to know that in next turn or the 2 turns you're going to need to be in that spot over there because they have to be on the point now by that turn, and if you're there you can wipe them off the point with the perfect bolter discipline. Like, can you make that happen? You're not thinking, okay, well now I need to build 2 Reavers and a Vanguard vet with a grav pistol and a flamer pistol because that's the perfect combo, blah 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 blah, and I think they really have changed the focus on that, which is fine by me. Yeah. All right. Well, did you guys have anything you wanted to finish off with?
Just shout out to our channel again.
Strategic Advantage.
If you like us, we talk about this stuff a lot. We're on YouTube, Strategic Advantage. I guess we can do a little bit of a teaser here of something that we have
Please do, yeah.
planned. We're planning on doing in the near future weekly hobby and hangs. Tentatively planning for short hour-long segments on a weekday, just to hang out and shoot the breeze, paint some models, and just talk about anything, maybe some Kill Team. Awesome. And we got a lot more of our kind of mechanics drilled down on the focus of more focused mechanics for the game. Rundown of narrative, just to help out people who want to kind of get a handle on the experience side and the crusade side and building up a base of operations, just to highlight that to make it easier for people to digest, as well as some more Tactica videos talking about line of sight from the melee perspective. Which, is that your base of operations already?
Operations.
Oh, buddy.
Perfect.
I gotta get cracking on mine. Yeah, so a lot of that to come. If you just go on YouTube, search for Strategic Advantage, we should be the first to pop up.
Awesome. I've got to say, if you can't tell by the fact I'm doing this podcast, man, I would love to be a 2-person team. Like, you could just turn the camera on and talk, and it cascades, it becomes things. Me, it's like, oh, hi guys, it's just me here today. I was gonna hobby, but I don't like it.
I do have something to complain about today, though.
Okay, hit me.
I did not receive my double hello at the start of this video.
You missed it then? Oh, you mean this video?
And
yeah, this one.
This video. Yeah. Do you do double hellos on this?
No.
Because I also stayed to the end, Glass. So I do think I'm owed a triple hello right now.
Here's the thing.
Well, here's the thing.
Okay.
He missed it.
Yeah.
And it's probably multiplicative. So I think he owes us a sextuple hello.
Ooh.
Well, to be fair, he has forgotten a double hello before, and he just double helloed into a triple hello.
I did,
so
yeah,
the
right at the end.
Has already been
right
set that that's an acceptable form of making a right on a remiss double hello. So, to be fair.
Yeah, to be fair. Here's the thing, right? I didn't even know if I wanted to make this a podcast. This is why I'm doing these air quotes every time I say podcast, because this isn't anything. Like, this is just people chatting, and like, if you can't tell, I'm having some internal conflicts. Do I actually care about this? I don't know.
And I've tuned into a lot less for a lot more time.
In that case, can I interest you in my Patreon? Awesome. All right, well, no, if this was an official piece of content, there would be a certain number of hellos given out. But as it's
I see.
It's in the air. I can't really start in, when like not Bitcoin, but a crypto hits a fork. I don't want to fork my Hallows, and this would be like Hallow Light. Compared, I don't know, like devalue the
maybe
whole
you can have Doge Hello for Doge Hellos for the Twitch channel. Just start a whole new crypto. That way you don't fork it.
There you go. Don't fork it. And now everybody in the chat's just talking about Hello inflation. Alex, did you have anything you wanted to finish up on?
No, I mean the same. We're on the same.
You
channel,
are the same
so...
channel. I realize that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you are the same person. But yeah. All right. A little bit. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. I'd say, hey, see you at LVO, but currently the UK and the US can't fly to each other, so probably won't in I was really hoping I would, actually. Like, didn't go last year. That was very intentional, even if COVID hadn't been a thing. But this year, we're coming out of lockdown. I was actually really excited to get out to the States again, make a big thing of it. I was actually hoping that I'd be able to, like, I don't even know why. Like, it would cost me so much money, but like try and do like a round trip of a bunch of larger channels if they'd have me. I would have to beg them to come on, obviously, but like, I play on Tabletop, Guerrilla Miniature Games, because they're both up in Canada, aren't they? There's another one up in Canada too, and then
those are the two in Canada I know off the cuff, and then you got Warp Charge Gaming on the East Coast.
Yes, yeah.
And
I was hoping to do almost like a round trip. That's obviously not going to happen, but that had been like my intent. And then like I
got a number of months for the world to change for the better, hopefully. So.
Yeah, we'll see. Anything could happen. Anything could happen. But right now, I'm we will see. Also, I suspect that if they do open the flights, prices are going to go insane because everyone's going to try and get out there at the same time. So
yeah,
I'm a poor boy. So.
Yeah, or they might try to coax people into flights and keep them low.
Maybe. Like
when trips to Hawaii were dirt cheap. Once,
really?
Flights started opening up again. Yeah, so.
Oh well.
Again,
a lot can happen in a number of months.
So I'm hoping for the positive.
Right, people are just saying I'm giving excuses to not say hellos, and then Water Team, this is great content, keep it up. Well, thank you. Go and check out Strategic Advantage, guys, and thanks for coming along. I'm not going to do
thanks for having us. This was a blast.
So, yeah, good to talk to you, dude.
Yeah, let's talk again soon.
Sure, happy to come back whenever.
More Kill Team content creators, the better. That's what I say.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Unless I don't like them, in which case I'm going to use all of my influence to quash them.
How very 40k of you.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean,
Exterminatus.
Luckily, I have very little influence, so that won't work. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for coming along, guys. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. If you're watching it live, but you missed a part, the only way you can get hold of this is on my Patreon. But I'm going to be honest, because I don't consider this real content yet, I've deliberately made it very easy to find, even if you're not on my Patreon. Because, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Alright, thanks very much, Strategic Advantage. Thanks very much, chat. I will see you all later.
Adios.
Ciao, ciao.
And I've stopped streaming.